Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I see a lot of you are in the States and it's super early for you this morning. So thank you very much for being here. Yeah, so I'm just going to talk and open the floor really for a discussion. A little bit to start with about the process of making the book, which you guys were all involved in. And then we're going to talk a little bit more broadly about the value of residency programs at the moment. Um, so yeah, so we're just thinking. So that's just like who I am and who Lucinda is. And we're both working with NAHR quite a lot and we were editors on the book, so you will have definitely been in contact with me. Um, Great. So yeah, what was the process of making this book? It was a really great and collaborative process, which was really nice. It's kind of unusual to be working with this many different authors and artists all at once to create something. So putting that all together was going to be a challenge from the start. And yeah, I wasn't actually the person involved in making all the decisions about how it's going to go, but I came in and then helped with all the organizing and bringing stuff together. And I think it was really lovely how the opening was to have these series of workshops, very similar to what we're doing right now, actually, to bring our voices back together, to see what your opinions had been from when you guys have been present in the residencies, and then to find out like how people's thoughts have progressed and then maybe how they've progressed in relation to the authors and their ideas as well. And something that was super interdisciplinary about it was that the authors were mostly not from artistic backgrounds. So they were bringing these very different perspectives to the majority of the fellows, who were from a much more artistic background. And also we had the fortune then of bringing people together that hadn't really met before, which again, I think was a really lovely element to spark more conversation within those workshops. Um, and the voices section itself was this sort of ode to the fellows, which you guys have all been involved with, like creating text for, also supplying images for. And Lucy had been participating or watching the workshops. And through those, it enabled her to then create these sets of questions, which were sent back out to you, which meant that there was like this constant ongoing dialogue in the creation of this book, back and forth between like your experience in the residency, the experiences of the authors before they even knew about NAHR, coming together into this workshop, going back out to Lucy, and then coming back together, to talk, to discuss again, like through email, and then back to us to like put everything together. It's such a lovely weaving dialogue and process that helped us to create this book. And I think you really get a sense of that as well. When you read through the book, you really feel like everything is just connected. Well, I do. So yeah, this is a slider. So yeah, Lucy also wrote all of the introductions to the voices sections, like this one here. So yeah, just some nice images of the voices sections. And what is the value of residencies for artists today? I think this is something I would like to open up some space for the fellows to contribute to people who are experiencing going on residencies. I've just put some points here that I felt were really valuable about doing residencies. The fact that it gives that space for dialogue, that not just even like a space, but that it creates a place in which we're all there to have that dialogue together. So there's that sense of it's like the people being in that place create that kind of placeness, that sense of being somewhere present. The commitment to what you're doing is really important and very difficult to find at the moment. Personally, I find that very difficult to find. I'm like bouncing between many different spaces in my own work. So to have the opportunity to go to one space where lots of other people have come to that space together, I find is a really important tool to boost your creative practice. And then you also get to have that collaborative moment with each other, which again can be quite rare, and it can be quite difficult to force people into a collaborative setting. Like I work in theatre, and we're all coming to the space, the theatre space, from such different lives, and we are kind of trained to leave our baggage out at the door, when you enter the theatre space. But it's really hard to do that. And I feel like it's just getting harder and harder and harder to do that. But when you go somewhere like the Taleggio Valley, there's just nowhere else to go. So you're just with those people, and the collaboration is, for me, the collaboration was what brought the residency alive. And that leads into this idea of having this place that is just really for play. Like you're just with each other and you're exploring, and you're getting to like acknowledge each other's like crazy thoughts or desires to, scoop up some soil and sing to it, or leap into a river with no clothes on, or whatever it is that someone has decided is what they need to do in that moment. And maybe it doesn't end up in your final piece of work, but it's also having the time and space to realize that all of these elements and actions and thoughts are part of the process towards like freeing yourself towards a more creative space. And then, of course, that is, as I was saying, it's like a laboratory, isn't it? You don't have to. That's the other thing that's really valuable about residencies. So much of the work that we're involved in our daily lives is like focused on delivering and product, and is it going to, are we going to make something that the public will love, and will thousands of people come to see it? And having that space to just stop and go, it doesn't really matter. I don't, it doesn't. If 5 people in this village see this, that's enough. Like that's all I'm doing here is creating, and then by presenting it to a small public, just giving you that moment to experience it in the eyes of another, but without it having to be because it needs to be the best thing. I think that's also, like, personally, again, that was something I found is so important and so freeing, and yeah, just super valuable and really hard to find these spaces in daily life normally. So yeah, that's my opinion on why I think that residencies are really valuable spaces. And here's, yes, this is from Lucy was in the valley with some dancers, and they were doing work with the water. Here we go. I grabbed these from the book just to show this element of collaboration and openness and listening. And it was also having that respect with each other to listen and value each other's opinions. And also not just with each other, but with the environment and with the animals and with the place as well, to create this feeling of the place that you are in together is so special. Yes, I'd love to open up the floor to anyone else now. Um, if anyone would love to talk, please just take yourself off mute. And to ask you, I'm just asking you basically, for you, what is the value of the residency? Would you tell someone that they need to go and do a residency like this? Oh, Anne, I see you wrote something in the chat.
Sure. So I sort of had a very different experience than a lot of people who go to Italy, because in Italy, of course, you are with other residents at the same time usually, whereas in the Santa Ynez Valley, it's very secluded, basically, like you're by yourself, mostly. But I was able to decide what I wanted to do each day. It was very like self-driven. So very much like a choose your own adventure of who I wanted to go and meet with and visit. I visited a lot of regenerative ranches and farms. And being from LA, where I live in an apartment and I'm never more than like 10 feet away from a human at all times, it was really nice to just have that space for 2 weeks where I just got to think about and do whatever I wanted to do. It felt very self-driven and very, it was luxurious to be able to take that time. So yeah, that was my experience.
Great.
Yeah, maybe interesting about what Anne says is that we do have since 2021, and maybe not even everyone in the talk is today is aware that we have a California outpost that is part of our book. And we have a small essay at the end that is called the Portrait of the Valleys, because we do have these two valleys that are unlikely to be connected otherwise, if it's not that our team is spread all over the world, including starting from Europe, but including Southern California, Central California, and we are hosted in this ranch in Southern California. And some of the people online, or I saw John earlier, I don't know if he's still there, but have been in that program, the same that Annie has been talking about. And if you think that the village is a small place, Santa Ynez is small in its own terms, but by being small is not a derogative thing. It's just places that, as Roxanne, you said, are allowing thinking and working and in a different way. But even though it's 5 minutes from town, but the ranch has yet another sense of spatial conditions that really makes it feel like a retreat, right? So that's another place that is quite interesting. Maybe if you want to show is at the end, Roxanne, of the spread. I don't know if you have it. I can also actually share.
Yeah. Oh, I don't have that spread on here, but yes, I could go to the PDF.
You can move on, but I can share the screen for a second at some point.
Sure. Okay, I'll stop sharing. So I think one other aspect of being in this on the residency that I found a few people, I think especially when thinking about soil, to be struggling with was to be in another place, kind of making use of that space for an artistic and creative output, but without trying to do that without feeling like you are impacting on the place or like appropriating the place as well. And I think that is something that I don't know, but I and I know that a few other people that were there had struggled with that thought a few times, and that's something that like a lot of that you have to work through in order to like feeling this sense of collaboration as well with the place that you're in, and doing this like site specific work is a completely different ballgame to like what we are doing for living in cities a lot of the time, going out and being in the countryside and not feeling like you're just taking it as like, because I'm in the countryside, I'm going to do something like floral, or, you know, how do you really integrate in a valid and meaningful way? So yeah, I thought, I mean, I don't know if anyone else had any experiences of that, or if you felt like, because that's something that's so, like, I mean, for me in the UK, that's something so prevalently worried about is like appropriation. And I think it's an important thing to be concerned with as well. You don't want to go and represent something when you're not from that place. So it's finding that like weaving and linking between who you are, what you've brought to the place, and what the place is. What is the interface between you at that point?
Roxanne, I see a bunch of comments. I don't know, Siobhan, if you like to unmute Ho-Ting, please unmute yourself, and just it's difficult to see everyone, and but feel free to jump in and tell us about your experience. Yeah. Or I see Sky, Marvin. There are lots of you. Please jump in. Anyone? Siobhan said, I really appreciate it.
I guess I'll jump in. Because I think, Roxanne, I also was thinking a lot about what you were just mentioning about, you know, if I'm doing work close to where I live, I spend a lot of time getting to know people, getting to know a place. And that's really different when you sort of drop in for a little while. But I did really appreciate the kind of start of the residency as like a lot of like organized sharing of knowledge, that at least even if we were new, there was like a real attention to kind of making sure that we were grounded at the start. And I did really appreciate that as like kind of being an unusual aspect of a residency in my experience.
Yeah. Maristella, you've raised your hand as well.
Yes, yes. You hear me. I raise my hand because, I mean, what Roxanne told us about the residency, and now also some others, I want to make a claim for something that it's sometimes it's given for granted. I mean, Roxanne has two major concept. One is the pleasure, or the possibility of play with the nature, play with the site, play with the other fellows, play with the landscape and the people that live in Valtaleggio or the people that live in Sant'Agnès, because there is also the other component. The fellows are not in a vacuum. They belong to a much larger community. And so I like this idea, this concept. It's very, very relevant for NAHR. And the other one is that the idea of artist, that I would refer almost in a kind of post-Renaissance approach. I mean, here artists are also the professionals. Everybody who is able to express with creativity, even very, very down to the ground professional. There are many architects that come, and there are pure artists. Our Roxanne, I mean, she's an opera singer. So she expressed herself through the sound. And so what I consider the unique opportunity, but also the joy of NAHR, is that professionals in all the fields find a way to express their creativity and play with that creativity. Where sometimes not only you are far away from the others in an apartment, but also you restrain yourself like this to one profession, while as a human, in this context of coexistence, we can express many professional or many, I mean, non-professional, but still valuable ideas.
I see Sky that she is a world traveler exploring the oceans. Do you want to jump in with your it's nice to see you after so many years, Sky, in
Sure.
your face.
Hi. Yeah, I mean, I spent a lot of decades on the ocean, and I think I did a residency in the Amazon and then went to Valtaleggio, and I think that just seeing a completely different side, or I came because the topic was water, and seeing, a completely different side of water. And I think to me, this is a good question about, I mean, the other NAHR fellows, like just the humble way that everyone is kind of following their own curiosities, and like with the lenses from their background experience and their, whether they were an architect or, a poet, the way that they saw the world was really like, I had never met a performance artist before. And I really felt like I got to know what performance, I understood these different, even the different styles or kind of applications of creativity, I guess, better than I had otherwise. And then all seeing that and contextualizing it in the same place was really exciting. And I think for me, I'm an information designer, and I really care. I'm really interested in like what information is, how is each place different than another place? Like it's information that's entering our mind, right? And so being able to see that through the lens of all of these different kind of theorists and practitioners, and in community, even with the people in Soto Chiesa, was so it's just so nice to see that all come together by the end and see this continue.
Thank you. We'll come back to water in an hour or so. So we'll continue the conversation, Sky, on the subject also. Thank you for many other people.
Isabel
I see
has I think Isabel has just
Isabel, sorry.
Hi. I just wanted to say that
Hi.
my experience was a little bit different. I think it was less about partnerships and more about being able to find a quiet voice inside myself that was connecting with the nature and the sounds of water coming from a big noisy city. I just couldn't believe how quiet it was. And then on top of that, I was really interested and learned so much from the history of the place and the history of agriculture there and the deep connection that the people of the villages in Taleggio, their connection to nature and the way they manage nature. So I was really interested in learning about the cultivation of the place. And so it was really place-based. I, of course, enjoyed and needed the company of the other fellows, but I found great, great intellectual inspiration just from wandering around and bumping into bathtubs filled with water and trees chopped down to the ground and all these like clues to the way people live in the valley.
And Isabel came 4 times to NAHR in different ways, and from a fellowship to the workshop. So she's one of the coming back to visit Italy, not just the valley, but and actually it's also very interesting in a way how that passion that you have, Isabel, for trees in a way has been carried through or back at first and developed much further in Venice, California, where you live, right? Because you're all almost dress up and ready to go planting trees as every Saturday morning you do, which is quite commendable for an architect to put her hands every Saturday morning on earth to make it happen. The preciousness of soil and urban forestry is not just theoretical for Isabel, so I commend you for your real commitment to that. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you.
I'd also like to pick up on something that, oh yeah, thanks as well. I just wanted to pick up on something that Anne put in the chat there as well. I don't know if you want to talk about that anymore, Anne, as well, about the, you said there's a deep connection to this across time and space afterward, which I think is really important.
Yeah. And I didn't feel it until afterward, of course, right? Because you don't know what you're getting into. And then you're like, oh, wow, this is really cool. And then every time you reconnect with these sort of post events after the residency, your connection to the other fellows gets deeper and deeper and stronger. And I just really appreciate that. And especially the fact that we are a global organization. Even just on this event alone, there's probably like at least 12 different countries represented, right? And so that's just really that makes my heart really happy, just to be connected to so many brilliant artists who really care about nature, about our connection with art and nature and each other. So I'm really grateful for all of you.
Yeah, I think just jumping in on that as well, like it's really good to have this post experience of the residency that like, especially when you're going to experience a place that's not where you live, because you're having to travel there, like there's an environmental impact to what you're doing there. And a lot of the value of what you're creating is not just for yourself, and it doesn't even have to be like just for the place. It's also for what happens when you come back home and the people that you connect with. And then again, like the wider community that you are creating as part of that process. So there's like a way of it being a more valuable form of travel as well. Or at least that's how I like to think of it. So, yeah.
And for also we use the term artist, but the fellows really, as Maristella mentioned, are from all over the disciplines. And for some of us is a way of exploring the profession and advancing it to do residency. So some people do multiple in their career, but for other professions, doing a residency is something unique, and maybe they've done it only, one time. Or I see Anne is not, was not something she was familiar with until she became familiar. So that's also fascinating. And I see John, he's a geographer, for example, and came during the last phase of his PhD in GIS and data, so the artist term we are using is very broad and exciting because of that as well. Different ways of seeing the profession.
Yeah.
The 30 minutes run fast, Roxanne.
Oh, is it already 1:30? Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that, but there's like creativity in everything. So it's great to explore that together. Yeah. Ah, okay. Well, shall we move on?
Yeah, so thank you for this warm up to the conversation, to this little bit strange space that we became acquainted, but being at a distance, physical distance, makes it more challenging to keep the conversation fluid. But we are moving to the next hour, and please, you as participants, always, that's why we don't do it on the webinar format, but we do it on these, we are all parts of the conversation. Just unmute yourself and jump in also in other session, being the session you came to NAHR or another one is really meant to be a free spirit conversation.